Nobody at Forrester Creations saw it coming. Not Brooke, not Ridge, not even Steffi. While the lights still glowed inside the glamorous offices of the fashion empire, another meeting was already happening across town. Quieter, darker, and far more dangerous. A meeting that could change everything for the Logan family forever. And at the center of it all sat Bill Spencer with a smile that should have terrified everyone. Because this time, Bill wasn't chasing revenge. He was planning domination. The air inside Katie's office felt strangely heavy as Hope Logan stared down at the contract in front of her. The paper looked innocent enough. A few signatures, a new opportunity, a fresh start. But Hope knew better. The second she signed her name, she wouldn't just be leaving Forrester Creations behind. She would be starting a war. Katie tried to keep her voice calm, but the excitement was practically leaking out of her. "This could be huge, Hope," she whispered carefully. "Bigger than anything we imagined." Hope didn't answer right away. Her thoughts were racing too fast. Just days earlier, she had still been trying to convince herself things could improve at Forrester. Maybe Ridge would finally listen to her ideas. Maybe Steffi would stop treating her like an outsider. Maybe the company that carried her family's legacy would actually start feeling like home again. But deep down, Hope already knew the truth. Forrester Creations was never really hers, and maybe it never would be. Bill leaned forward slowly, watching Hope the way a chess player watches the final move of a game. Calm, confident, dangerous. "You know why this works?" Bill finally asked. "Because they'll never expect it." That sentence hung in the room like smoke. Donna shifted uncomfortably in her chair. She hated secrets, especially secrets involving family. And this one felt explosive. "Brooke can't know yet," Katie said quickly, almost nervously. "Nobody at Forrester can find out until we're ready." Hope looked stunned. "Not even my mother?" Bill answered before Katie could. "Especially not Brooke." The silence after that felt brutal. Hope's stomach tightened because suddenly this wasn't just business anymore. This was strategy, manipulation, timing. Bill wanted secrecy because he wasn't planning to compete with Forrester Creations fairly. He wanted to blindside them, completely. And somehow, that made the whole thing even more thrilling. Bill stood up and walked toward the massive windows overlooking Los Angeles. The city lights reflected in his eyes as he crossed his arms confidently. "For years, Ridge Forrester acted like he owned this city," Bill said coldly. "Like nobody could touch his precious company. But fashion changes, power changes, and now, people are tired of the same old dynasty." Hope slowly looked up at him. That fire in Bill's voice was real. This wasn't about helping Katie launch a company anymore. This was personal revenge wrapped inside a fashion empire. Donna finally spoke up carefully. "You really think Logan can beat Forrester?" Bill turned around with a grin that almost looked ruthless. "Oh, we're not going to beat them," he said softly. "We're going to humiliate them." The room went completely still. Then Bill delivered the announcement nobody expected. "Wyatt's coming back." Hope's eyes widened instantly. Katie looked shocked, even though she clearly knew Bill had been planning something huge behind the scenes. Donna nearly dropped the folder in her hands, because suddenly everything made sense. This wasn't a small business launch anymore. Bill Spencer was building an army, and Forrester Creations had absolutely no idea the attack was already beginning. Hope didn't say anything at first. The moment Bill dropped Wyatt's name into the conversation, something inside the room shifted. It wasn't just surprise, it was realization. The kind that slowly creeps in when you finally understand you've already stepped into something much bigger than you agreed to. Wyatt Spencer coming back to Los Angeles wasn't random. Nothing about Bill Spencer ever was. Katie glanced at Hope, clearly trying to read her reaction, but Hope was still stuck in that moment. Her mind flashed back to everything Wyatt represented. The Spencer legacy, the business instincts, the unexpected moments he had always brought into every situation. If Wyatt really joined this, it wouldn't just be a fashion expansion, it would be a takeover in slow motion. Bill walked back to the table, his voice calm but firm. Wyatt understands branding, he understands timing, and more importantly, he understands leverage. Donna frowned slightly. Leverage over who exactly? Bill didn't even hesitate. Forrester Creations. That name alone seemed to tighten the air again. Hope finally spoke, her voice cautious. "So this isn't just about launching a line?" Bill looked at her directly now. "No, Hope. It never was. That answer landed heavier than anything else in the room. Katie shifted in her seat, suddenly aware that what started as an ambitious fashion idea had evolved into something far more aggressive. She had wanted Logan to grow, to compete, to step out of the shadow of Forrester Creations. But Bill was thinking in terms of dominance, not competition. Hope slowly exhaled. My mom still thinks this is just business. A small, knowing smile touched Bill's face. Your mother is emotional. That's her strength, and her weakness. That line made Donna visibly uncomfortable again, because it was true. Brooke Logan always led with her heart, and that was exactly why she would never see this coming until it was too late. Across the city, Forrester Creations was operating like nothing had changed. Meetings, sketches, fittings, the usual rhythm of a fashion empire that believed it was untouchable. Ridge was still riding the confidence of control. Steffi was focused on expansion. Eric's legacy still hung over every decision like a crown no one wanted to admit was fading. But Bill saw cracks where others saw perfection, and he was very good at turning cracks into collapse. Back in the room, Hope looked down at the contract again. Her signature was still blank. It suddenly felt heavier than before, like the paper itself understood the consequences. Katie leaned in gently. Hope, you don't have to decide this like it's a trap. We want you because of your talent, not because of a war. But even as she said it, Katie didn't fully believe her own words anymore, because Bill's presence had changed the energy completely. Hope finally asked the question that had been building in her mind. If Wyatt comes back, what exactly is his role? Bill's answer came immediately. He's going to lead something Forrester never expected us to touch. He paused just long enough to make sure they were listening. Jewelry. The word hit differently. Not couture, not runway fashion. Something more personal, more visible, more permanent. Katie blinked. Wyatt hasn't worked in that space in a while. Bill nodded. Exactly. That's what makes it perfect. Forrester won't see it coming from him. Hope slowly started to understand the strategy forming in front of her. This wasn't random hiring. This was targeted positioning. Each person had a purpose. Each move was designed to hit Forrester Creations from a different angle. Fashion from Hope, jewelry from Wyatt, and something else, still waiting in the shadows. Donna looked between them all. And what happens when they find out? Bill's expression didn't change. When they find out, he said quietly, it'll already be too late. A silence followed that statement. Not awkward, but dangerous. Outside, Los Angeles kept moving like nothing important was happening. But inside that room, a storm was building that no one at Forrester Creations had even noticed yet. Hope finally placed her hand over the contract again. This time, it didn't feel like hesitation. It felt like the moment before impact. Hope's fingers stayed on the contract a little longer than anyone expected, not because she was unsure anymore, but because she was starting to understand exactly what signing it meant. This wasn't just a career move, it was a line in the sand. Across town, Forrester Creations still glittered like it always did. Polished glass, expensive art, confident faces walking through hallways like nothing in the world could shake them. But confidence is a strange thing in Los Angeles. It only lasts until someone quietly pulls the rug out from underneath it. And right now, Bill Spencer was holding that rug. Back in Katie's office, Wyatt's return still hung in the air like a ticking clock nobody wanted to look at too closely. Hope finally broke the silence. Wyatt doesn't even know about this yet, does he? Bill gave a slight nod. Not fully. He knows I want him back in Los Angeles. He just doesn't know why yet. Katie exhaled slowly. That sounds like a problem waiting to happen. Bill didn't even blink. It's an opportunity waiting to happen. That distinction said everything about him. Hope leaned back slightly, studying Bill now instead of the contract. There was something almost unsettling about how calm he was. Most people building a business talked about growth, branding, numbers, strategy. Bill talked about people like pieces on a board, and somehow, he always knew which way they would move. Donna shifted again, still uncomfortable. If Wyatt comes back and joins this, and Hope leaves Forrester Creations, people are going to notice something's off. Katie nodded quickly. That's why we keep everything quiet, until launch. Hope looked up. And when is launch supposed to happen? Bill's answer came immediately, sooner than they expect. That wasn't a timeline. That was a warning. Meanwhile, at Forrester Creations, Ridge was reviewing sketches for the next line, completely unaware that one of the company's most valuable assets was already slipping through his fingers. Steffi was focused on numbers, market positioning, expansion plans, all the things that made a company look stable on paper. But stability doesn't matter when the foundation is quietly being removed, and Hope Logan was part of that foundation. Back in the office, Hope finally picked up the pen again. Her hand hovered just above the paper. Katie watched closely. "Hope, whatever you're thinking, just know this isn't about betraying anyone. It's about building something new." Hope let out a quiet breath. "That's not how it will look." Bill stepped in. "It never does, until it works." That line landed harder than anything else he had said. Hope finally signed. One smooth motion. No hesitation this time. The ink hit the paper like a door closing behind her. For a second, nobody spoke. Even Bill didn't rush it. He just watched it happen, like a man watching the first move of a plan he'd already finished in his head. Then Katie smiled, relief mixed with excitement. "It's official." But Donna didn't look relieved. She looked worried, because she understood something the others were only starting to realize. Once Hope Logan walked away from Forrester Creations, nothing would stay the same again. Bill leaned forward slightly, voice lowering. "Good, now it begins." Hope looked up. "Begins what, exactly?" Bill's smile returned, small, sharp, and completely certain. "The part where they don't see us coming." And somewhere in that moment, the tone shifted for good. This wasn't a startup anymore, it was a setup, and Forrester Creations was already inside the crosshairs, even if they didn't know it yet. Hope didn't celebrate. Even after the ink dried on the contract, even after Katie's relieved smile and Bill's satisfied silence filled the room, something in Hope refused to fully relax, because once you sign your name to a plan like this, you don't just step into a business deal, you step into consequences. Outside Katie's office, Los Angeles kept shining like nothing important had happened. Cars moved through the streets, designers rushed between meetings, and inside Forrester Creations, people were still arguing over fabrics, sketches, and runway concepts that suddenly felt fragile, like glass waiting for the first crack. Back inside, Bill finally broke the silence. "Now we make it airtight," he said calmly. Katie nodded quickly. "No leaks, no rumors. Nothing gets out until we're ready to launch." Donna let out a slow breath. "That's easier said than done. People talk, especially in this town." Bill's expression didn't change. "Then we make sure they don't know what they're talking about." That tone again, calm, controlled, slightly dangerous. Hope finally spoke. "And Deke?" Katie brightened slightly, almost relieved to shift focus. "Yes, Deke is key. He's already got design ideas, sketches. He just needs structure," Bill added, "and confidence." Hope frowned slightly. "He's my brother. He has talent. He just hasn't had the right opportunity." Bill nodded once. "Exactly, and now he does." There was something strategic in the way he said it. Like Deke wasn't just joining a company, but being positioned into a role that served a much larger plan. Hope noticed that. She was starting to notice everything now. Meanwhile, across town, Forrester Creations buzzed with its usual confidence. But underneath the polished surface, subtle tensions were starting to form, the kind no one could quite name yet. Ridge was reviewing upcoming campaign ideas, Steffi was pushing expansion talks, and Eric's legacy still lingered like a shadow no one wanted to acknowledge directly. Everything looked stable, too stable, because stability in this world rarely lasts long. Back in Katie's office, Bill stood again, walking toward the window like he owned the skyline beyond it. "Wyatt will understand his role once he's here," he said. Katie glanced at him. "And if he doesn't agree?" Bill didn't even hesitate. "He will." That certainty wasn't arrogance, it was experience. Hope shifted slightly in her seat. "You're really building all of this around Forrester Creations, aren't you?" For the first time, Bill didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at her carefully, like he was deciding how much truth she was ready to hear. Finally, he said, "I'm building something stronger than them." That answer wasn't loud, but it was heavy. Donna crossed her arms. "Bill, Ridge isn't going to sit back and let this happen. If he finds out what you're doing," Bill turned slightly, "he'll do what he always does, react too late." That hit differently. because it implied something worse than competition. It implied inevitability. Hope looked down at her hands again. Signing the contract suddenly felt like standing at the edge of something she couldn't fully see the bottom of. And yet, she was already in it. Later that same day, far away from Katie's office, Wyatt Spencer's name came up in a completely different conversation, one he wasn't even part of yet. At Forrester Creations, a casual mention in passing, a designer talking about old Spencer chaos and wondering where Wyatt had disappeared to. No one thought much of it, but irony is cruel in Los Angeles, because even as they joked about his absence, Wyatt's return was already being planned in detail. Back in Katie's office, Bill finally turned away from the window. "Wyatt comes back next," he said. "Then we start building visibility." Katie leaned forward. "Runway?" Bill nodded. "Runway, jewelry, presents. We make Logan impossible to ignore." Hope looked up sharply. "And Forrester?" A faint smile returned to Bill's face. "We make them try to catch up." That line changed the energy again, because suddenly this wasn't just a rival brand, it was a race, and Forrester Creations didn't even know they had started running yet. Donna looked uneasy now. "This feels like it's going to get messy," Bill replied without hesitation. "It already is." Hope sat back slowly, feeling the weight of it all settle in. Her new reality wasn't something she could undo anymore. She had crossed over, and somewhere deep inside, she already knew. The moment Wyatt Spencer walked back into Los Angeles, everything would shift again, and not gently. By the time Bill Spencer left Katie's office, the air in the room felt different. Not calmer, just sealed, like something had been set in motion that couldn't be pulled back, no matter how much anyone wanted to undo it later. Hope stayed behind for a moment, still staring at the contract like it might change shape if she looked at it long enough. Katie was already energized, flipping through notes, talking about rollout timing, brand structure, launch strategy, her mind fully locked into building something new. But Hope wasn't there yet. She was still standing on the edge of the decision she had just made, and once again, the same thought kept coming back. Forrester Creations had no idea what was coming. Meanwhile, across town, Forrester Creations continued its polished rhythm of meetings and design reviews. Steffi was discussing international expansion, Ridge was weighing creative direction, and Eric's legacy still hung quietly over everything like a framed memory no one wanted to take down. Everything looked normal, too normal, because normal is often what things look like right before they break. Back at Bill's penthouse later that day, Wyatt Spencer finally picked up the call he had been waiting on. "Dad?" Wyatt's voice came through, casual, slightly cautious. Bill didn't waste time. "I need you back in Los Angeles." A pause. Wyatt immediately picked up on the tone. "That sounds like more than a visit." Bill stepped toward the window, looking out at the city like it already belonged to him. "It is." Wyatt exhaled slowly. "All right, what's going on?" And this was the moment Bill had been waiting for, not because he needed permission, but because he needed alignment. "We're building something," Bill said carefully. "Something that will stand against Forrester Creations." Another pause. Wyatt didn't answer right away, because he understood what that name meant. Everyone in Los Angeles did. It wasn't just a company, it was history, legacy, pride, ego, and decades of power wrapped into one brand. Finally, Wyatt spoke. "You're going after Ridge?" Bill's smile returned faintly. "I'm going after the system." That answer told Wyatt everything. This wasn't a disagreement, this wasn't competition. This was war, dressed up as business. Back at Katie's office, Hope was now sitting across from her, finally starting to process the full scale of what she had stepped into. Katie softened her tone slightly. "You don't have to carry it like that, Hope. We're not doing anything illegal. We're just building differently." Hope nodded slowly, but her expression didn't fully change. "It doesn't feel simple." Katie hesitated. "It never does." Across town, Ridge walked through the Forrester showroom, stopping briefly at a display of recent designs. Everything looked perfect on the surface. Elegant silhouettes, bold branding, the kind of artistry that had defined the company for decades. But perfection is often the hardest thing to notice when it starts to decay. And right now, no one at Forrester Creations was looking for cracks. Back in Bill's world, Wyatt leaned into the call again. "So what exactly do you want me doing?" Bill didn't hesitate. "Jewelry," he said. "We're launching a line, and I want you leading it." That got Wyatt's attention immediately. "Jewelry? Since when?" Since now, Bill replied smoothly. You know the space, you've done it before, and more importantly, Forrester won't expect it from you. Wyatt let out a short laugh. You're really trying to shake things up, huh? Bill's voice lowered slightly. I'm trying to end predictability. That line landed quietly but firmly. Meanwhile, Hope was still at Katie's office, unaware that Wyatt had just stepped fully into the plan. Katie glanced at her. Wyatt will say yes. He always comes around when he understands the bigger picture. Hope asked softly, and what is the bigger picture? Really? Katie didn't answer immediately, because even she knew the answer wasn't simple anymore. Finally, she said, changing everything. And for the first time, Hope didn't respond, because deep down, she was starting to realize something uncomfortable. This wasn't just about launching a brand, it was about rewriting the balance of power in Los Angeles fashion entirely. And somewhere in the distance, Forrester Creations was still smiling, completely unaware that the ground beneath them had already started to shift. Wyatt Spencer's silence on the phone lasted a few seconds too long. Not because he didn't understand what his father was saying, but because he did. And once you understand Bill Spencer's tone when he's serious, you also understand something else. There is no casual version of what comes next. Finally, Wyatt spoke, his voice more grounded now. So you're really doing this. You're building Logan into a direct competitor to Forrester Creations. Bill didn't correct him. That alone said everything. I'm building something that doesn't have to live in their shadow, Bill replied. Wyatt let out a low breath, almost half amused, half cautious. And you want me in the middle of it. You won't be in the middle, Bill said calmly. You'll be at the front of it. That line hit differently, because Wyatt knew his father didn't offer front-row positions unless the stakes were real. Across town, Hope Logan stood in Katie's office again, but everything felt different now. The contract wasn't just ink on paper anymore. It was a timeline, a countdown, a chain reaction that had already started moving even if nobody outside this room could see it yet. Katie was on her laptop, already organizing launch ideas, while Donna paced slightly in the background, still uneasy. Hope finally broke the silence. What happens when they find out? Katie didn't look up immediately. They will find out, eventually. That's not what I asked, Hope said quietly. Katie paused, then closed the laptop a bit slower than necessary. Then we handle it. Hope exhaled, not fully satisfied with that answer, because handle it sounded simple, but nothing about Bill Spencer ever was. Meanwhile, at Forrester Creations, Ridge was walking through the design floor when he stopped near a sketchboard. A new collection was being discussed, something bold, something seasonal, something meant to reinforce their dominance in the market. Everything sounded normal, but something about the atmosphere felt slightly off. Small conversations paused when certain names were mentioned. Emails were answered a little slower. Even the usual confidence in the room had a faint edge to it. Nobody could explain it, because nobody knew there was anything to explain yet. Back at Bill's penthouse, Wyatt finally spoke again. All right, I'll come back, but I want to know one thing. Bill's eyes narrowed slightly. Go ahead. Wyatt hesitated just a fraction. Is this about business, or is this about Ridge? There it was, the real question. Bill didn't deny it. Instead, his voice dropped just slightly. It's about control. Ridge just happens to be standing in the way of it. Wyatt nodded slowly, even though his father couldn't see it. That's what I thought. And somehow, that was enough for him to say yes. I'll be there, Wyatt said finally. Bill's expression didn't change, but there was a shift in his tone. Satisfaction, clean and immediate. Good. We move fast. The call ended, and just like that, the final piece of the Spencer side of the plan had fallen into place. Back at Katie's office, Hope stood by the window now, looking out at Los Angeles like it belonged to someone else entirely. She felt Katie's energy behind her, busy, focused, excited. But Hope wasn't thinking about excitement. She was thinking about fallout. Donna stepped closer quietly. You don't look happy. Hope gave a small, uncertain smile. I'm not sure I know what this is supposed to feel like. Donna nodded slightly. That usually means your instincts are trying to tell you something. That made Hope look down for a moment, because her instincts had been loud lately, but she kept moving anyway. Across town, Ridge entered Eric's old office briefly, stopping for a moment longer than usual. There were memories here, legacy, pride, history. Things that didn't just disappear when the world changed, but even legacy can be challenged when the next generation stops playing by the same rules. And right now, someone was rewriting those rules entirely. Back at Bill's place, he stood alone again, looking out over the city. Wyatt was in. Hope was in. Katie was fully committed. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, Forrester Creations still believed they were untouchable. Bill exhaled slowly, almost satisfied. Let them think that, he muttered to himself, because confidence is dangerous, but false confidence is even better. A few days later, the first quiet ripple hit. A small rumor inside fashion circles. Nothing confirmed, nothing official, just whispers. That Hope Logan might be stepping away from Forrester Creations. That something new was forming under Katie Logan. That Wyatt Spencer had been spotted preparing to return to Los Angeles. At Forrester, it was brushed off as gossip, at least at first. But rumors in Los Angeles don't stay rumors for long. They grow, they spread, they evolve, and eventually, they become reality. Back in Katie's office, Hope received a message on her phone. Unknown number. Short text. I'm landing soon. Wyatt. Hope stared at it for a moment longer than she expected, then slowly lowered the phone. Katie noticed immediately. He said yes? Hope nodded faintly. Donna let out a quiet breath. So it's really happening. Hope didn't answer right away, because now she could feel it. The shift wasn't coming anymore. It was already here. And somewhere across the city, Forrester Creations was still standing tall, completely unaware that the first real wave of impact was about to hit.